Hi there, I'm your host McAuley Tucker, and you're listening to The McAuley Tucker Show, the podcast where I sit down with some of the most accomplished and fascinating individuals in the entertainment and business industry. From celebrities to industry leaders, our guests offer unique perspectives and inspiring stories that will educate and inform you. Join me as I sit down with my next guest to cover their humble beginnings, challenges they faced, as well as their accomplishments in life. You are bound to learn something new, so sit back and enjoy the interview. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the McAuley Tucker Show. Today I'm interviewing Geir Luedy. He's a Norwegian manager, musician, songwriter, and music producer. He's been managing for the very successful music artist you may know, Aurora, who created the song Runaway. Geir's my first manager in the program, and so we're just going to be talking to him about what it's like to be a manager. And I think you guys will enjoy this interview a lot, so sit back and enjoy the show. So I think just first question, music. You've been involved with music for many years. You've been involved with music since I believe the 90s maybe. And I would just love to kind of hear your journey in music. I know you were raised in a family with a lot of musically talented people. One of your brothers, he's part of a band, which is pretty cool, which I thought was pretty cool in my research. I'd love to hear more about your experience. How exactly did you get involved in this music world that you're in right now?
I was kind of doomed because my dad was a pianist and my mother was an opera singer. And then my oldest brother started playing the classical guitar, and then my second brother started playing in bands when he was like 15, and I was the youngest. And so I grew up in a musical family. So I picked up the guitar when I was around 10. I started playing, and I joined my brother in his band, and then I formed my own band in the 80s, 85, 86. And then I got really tired of school, and there was like a big studio in Bergen, the town where I live, that was recording a lot of albums. There was not a lot of albums coming out at that time. Like nowadays we have 100,000 songs coming out every day on Spotify, but back then there was probably more like 50 albums per year, or maybe 100 per year in Norway.
Right.
And the world was a lot bigger. So to me, those artists that recorded in that studio was big stars. And I was tired of school, and I went to the studio and I applied for being a tape boy when everything was analog. So I got that gig, and I stayed in the studio for 11 hours per day, 7 days a week, before I got to touch any of the knobs in the mixing desk or anything. I was just a tape boy and making coffee, and I was pretty determined that I wanted to, be a sound engineer. And so after half a year, I got getting to do some more stuff and learn. And I started to use what we call the dead time in the studio, which was after 11 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the morning. So
Right.
I started working with my own songs and my own band during the nights. And I did that for about 2 years to learn. And then fortunately, my band that I formed in the studio got a contract with Warner Music in Norway.
Okay.
And I was like touring with that. And I also played as a musician with some other acts. It was all having a lot of fun. And then we got some international interest in the band. And it all kind of stopped. And I was producing other stuff, continuing this journey. After 10 years, the studio was going down. We saw a big change in the music industry, but I still wanted to do it. So I started my own studio. and this is in 1998. And we could pretty quick see that people weren't buying studio time anymore. And by this time, I was producing kind of big artists in Norway. And my studio was, it was a bad timing to start the studio. So I started to think about how we could survive as a studio. And people bought their own laptops and started to do recordings, and I was trying to fix those recordings in the studio. So it was more and more like fragmented work.
Right.
And I was really frustrated there for a couple of years. But then I found a partner, and we started a production company. So I moved from being a producer and sound engineer and musician to be a songwriter. We signed to Universal Publishing in the UK, and our production company, we signed acts. And the idea was to just record music that we loved, and instead of having people paying by hour, we would sit on the rights.
Right.
And that's kind of my first opening to the music industry, because I started recording different acts, and I sent it to record labels in Oslo, and I spent a lot of time with these recordings. And I still don't know why, but I never got any interest from Oslo.
Oh wow.
So I got in touch with a lawyer in the UK, who's still one of my best friends, and he was helping me to get in touch with people in the UK. So I got some acts signed in London with big labels, and that process is what I learned the most from, because it all crashed.
Yeah.
In a very bad way. So I learned a lot from that together with my lawyer. And despite that, these things didn't happen. I survived on the money I got from the record labels, and I learned a lot. And he was a pretty big lawyer back then, but then he signed Adele, and he was moving very fast forward as a music lawyer. But he's an old hippie, and we stayed in touch all these years. And back in the studio, after these things crashed, I crashed myself. Now I'm moving over to 2007, 8, and it started to go really bad with the studio business. I didn't have any new, very interesting acts. I didn't find myself very interested anymore in the music industry. And I started to leave, and I kind of felt like I wanted to leave the whole music industry for a while, because I was tired of all these years working 10 to 16 hours a day. And I kind of lost my passion a little bit, because it was all so, I was so in the need of success to stay alive in the business. So, but it's a long way down. When you have a crash, it doesn't suddenly happen. It goes over time. So I was I spent a couple of years just avoiding too much work, trying to have new ideas and try new acts, but it didn't really work out. And finally, in 2011, I decided to stop. And I didn't really know who I was at the time. I was really, really frustrated. But then I went to Made Management, who was friends of mine. The guy that started it used to work for me, and we we kind of split because of conflict of interest. So there was, and we were really close to each other. So I started to hang out in the office, and not doing much, just hanging out with people, that was interested in music. And I was just having, time off, and trying to get to know myself a little bit better after all these years. And I hung out, we talked about music, and after 3 months, Aurora came down and we had a meeting. And she was then 16 years old. And I felt like, I felt like I had a strategy on how we could work it. And then I realized that all these years in the studio, I was setting up a record company, I was a songwriter, I was a studio engineer, studio owner, producer, I was managing a couple of acts. It was way too much. And it wasn't satisfying to myself not doing something 100%. And it was not satisfying to my clients either, because I was always busy with something else. So I decided, I proposed to Per, my partner, that I want to do this project. I don't want to produce it. I don't want to do anything else than just managing this girl. And I need a year, at least, to just develop it. I didn't need any money at the time. I had saved up some money so I could have a year off. So I spent a year and a half, and it was pretty chill because I didn't have all the responsibility. I went to some friends of mine, Odd Martin and Magnus, and I said, guys, I have this 16-year-old girl. Do you want to have a session with her? And maybe we could do this together. You could be the producers. I'll pass by the studio every day to see how it goes. Just do a couple of songs, and then we'll see how it goes.
Right.
And they did that, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I sent her to Germany, and we got like a very, very low publishing deal in terms of money. It was like no money in it, but I loved the people, and they really believed in it. And I hadn't been in touch with my lawyer for some time, and I sent him a song, and he said, congratulations, Geir, this is really good. And I felt good about it. So I placed her on stage, just her alone with the piano. And then we formed a band with the producers in the band. We started to rehearse, and it sounded pretty cool. And then we did like one of these shows, in this music industry conventions, Bylarm, which is the equivalent to South by Southwest or The Great Escape in Oslo. And it kind of like, she did 2 shows, and it was amazing. And the second show she did, when I woke up, we had a party after the show, and when I woke up, there was like 17 people trying to get in touch with me. She was like in the newspapers. She kind of won the whole thing. And from that day on, it has been extremely busy.
Yeah.
And we signed her. We actually had a long negotiation with a big record company in America. And that was also very, my past was really helpful in that process, because it was a huge deal. It was a much bigger deal than what we ended up doing. But it didn't feel right.
Right.
And after 3 months, I said, I'm not going to do this deal. And I really didn't have any other deals. I didn't have any, there was no competition. It just didn't feel right. And for the first time, I felt like I'm not going to do this wrong. I'm
Mhm.
gonna, this time I'm gonna do what feels right. And she was so young, and I felt
Mhm.
like as a manager, you feel more responsible than when you are a producer because you help them to produce the music. Now I'm like, this young girl is kind of, her career is in my hands. I need to make the right decision. So we turned down a big offer, and then we kind of started over and found Decca and Glass Notes, and we signed it. And at some point when we had released Runaway, that was kind of the tipping point for Aurora and for my career as well, was when Katy Perry twittered that she loved the song. And that was big at the time. She had 60 million followers or something.
Mhm.
And, after that, it was just turning the amplifiers up and do more and more and more and more. And I think our strategy was really good. Not that I knew a lot about managing at the time, but I was pretty old school, I
Right.
guess. It was more like we need to do concerts, and we need to do them all over the world. So we invested quite heavy in having her playing shows. And so, yeah, that career has just been growing step by step. And then Sigrid came in the door, and I signed her, and we pretty much did the same, just went a lot quicker with her because she had great songs, and we were talking a lot about the songs and which direction she wanted to go, and we were experimenting with different producers. And then suddenly there was a song in my inbox, Don't Kill My Vibe. And yeah, the short version is that I kind of knew that this is going to explode.
Oh yeah.
And I sent the songs to a couple of record companies, and the very same day I went to London, and I knew that it's going to be a hot week. And when I landed in London, it was so many messages, and it had spreaded from the people that I had sent messages to. And I had the first offer the next day on my desk. So it became like a competition between many record labels. I mean, there was still a lot of work to be done, but so we continued to write songs, and it got just like better and better. And it was, and then we did the same strategy. We put her up on stage, and we did tons of gigs. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
That's
That's how I
awesome.
ended up talking to you.
I really appreciate you sharing that story. You said a lot of amazing things, and it really fits in with the interview here. You mentioned a lot, like when you were younger, you kind of started out in the studio and you were in there, and that's very helpful. I know a lot of people who do that right now. They just work in the studio and they want to get that practice and experience. I know in 1995 you helped mix a release called Velvet. You helped mix on that, and so it's kind of cool hearing more about your experience mixing and mastering. That's something that I really enjoy. I will admit I'm not a pro at it, but I enjoy sitting down and perfecting mixes because I didn't mention this earlier, but I also do music. I don't I don't label myself as a musician more than I label myself as an interviewer. But music is a big passion of mine. I love old school. I love records. I have one sitting over here. I don't even know what this is, but I love records. And so looking at your story, you said a lot of amazing things. What really stood out to me, you were talking about this point in time where you didn't really know what to do. And I wanted to ask you, what did you learn about yourself in that period of time before you went to, going back into the studio? What did you learn about yourself in that kind of break period?
Well, I was in a classical 40-year-old crisis. I divorced, and the stories that there was specifically one story about an artist that I took to London, and we got like the network management was like they were managing Avril Lavigne and Coldplay, and we got them on board to manage this artist. We got Universal to sign the artist, and I was the producer together with my partner, and we also made his big song. But we didn't have a deal with him.
Right.
So he got offered a lot of money to just ditch us, and we're in good terms, but
Right.
it was kind of like I worked so hard for this, and then it's not happening, and I knew that this project is not going to go well. So they released that song, and it went top 10 in many countries. But I knew that everything was, because that was the vibe we had. We had this enormous momentum growing to be this big deal with management. And I was just a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got ditched by these big corporations. And of course, the deal never happened. And the one thing that I learned was, like, in the beginning, I thought, from now on, I'm always going to sign things. But actually, after a couple of months, I said the opposite. Like, from now on, I'm going to trust people even more, because we're not supposed to work. We're not meant to work with each other if it's going to be like this.
Right.
It needs to be based on trust.
Exactly.
So I didn't sign Aurora before we absolutely needed to have a piece of paper, because I was doing deals on her behalf. But it took 1.5 years before we signed. So that was one thing that I learned about myself. But I learned that, when you are running after the coins, you are in a squeeze, and you do desperate moves instead of having a long-term good strategy. And that's what I learned from my crisis in life with these artists that didn't work. They got signed and it all crushed, and my marriage that crushed, was that I need to be true to myself. I need to have faith in myself, and I need to find out what I am good at and how I want to do things. And I need to find that artist that matches with me. I can't have more ambitions than they have. We need to really match. And that happened with Aurora, that we matched.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't always agree on stuff, but we knew where we were going with this, and we were going very focused, instead of doing 10 times, 10 things at the same time. So that was really important. And also, like, this big deal with a lot of money didn't feel right. And I was old enough, and I had self-confidence to say, not going to do this. Because if I'm going to stay true to myself, this is about music. And this is why I'm here. And this is why I crushed, because it became all about the music industry and running for the dough, instead of staying focused. Like, I'm here because I love music. And that has been such a big gift in my life. I need to stay true to that. Exactly. And I don't care if I don't have any money, because I'm not going to ruin my relationship with music. But it took me some time. And also I learned that, it's a long way down. You don't crash. It always goes like this. But when you are really on your way down, you don't see it yourself. So you got to watch out. You got to evaluate your own position and what you're doing and why you're doing it at all times. and stay true to yourself. It's kind of a cliche,
Mhm.
but for a good reason, I think. And
Exactly.
also, yeah, and also people are very different, you know.
Mhm.
So being humble to that is extremely important. And I was kind of a douchebag when I was your age. I was like
Right.
arrogant and I thought I knew everything best. And if I met myself as a 17-year-old, I would just say, you need to grow up, man.
Mhm.
So, and I did that. It took me a long time, but I'm very happy about those crashes.
You can learn, one of my guests mentioned this, you can learn a lot from these types of things. Like, the challenges, these things like that, those are helpful. Those will help you grow and improve as a person. And I find that very
Yes.
valuable. Everything that you said there is so, so important. And it's really great to hear that you were able to grow from these challenges. And kind of coming from this conversation to another conversation, you were talking a lot about just being a manager, and I would love to hear more about this. You talked a lot about deals. Deals was a key word that you were saying a lot, and I wanted to kind of ask you, how do you make a good deal? I've always wanted to know that, because I work as a barista and I'm trying to upsell things at Starbucks, and I'm trying to convince people to buy these products. And so far, I've have a proven success, and I really enjoy customer service. And so I wanted to kind of hear, how do you make a good deal as a manager? It's a really crazy
Well,
question.
I yeah, but it's a very good question, but it's not an easy answer to it. But I
Hmm.
think in a let's say that you have some interest on an act from a record label, and you present the music, and they say they love it, and then you have to check if you know does the whole label loves it, or is just that one A&R? How hungry is he? It's all about the stuff that isn't in the deal,
Right.
because it's Universal is all about the people in there. And they have some brilliant people. I mean, they have 50% of the market. So
Right.
they're doing something right. It's a lot of great people working there. But we need to match. It's just like the manager and the artist needs to match. So you need to think about all the stuff that isn't in the deal
Right.
first. Like, is this the right vibe? Do they really get the music, or do they just want to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks?
Right.
Because they do that a lot. Those big record companies, they spend a lot of time and money on just signing stuff, and then they see if it sticks. So
Right.
you need to find out if these people are serious about your strategy. And my strategy is legacy. I want artists to have a sustainable, long career. I'm all about that. I'm not about signing an EDM song and get it on one of these big playlists and then signing another act the next day. I'm like, I love David Bowie and Bob Dylan and all these icons, and that's what motivates me, that we can work in a very long-term relationship. So you need to find people who sees that in the artist, that you
Right.
feel that they really understand the music and the artist and the message that the artist has. And then you need to find out if you fit with them socially, because you're going to do a lot of work together. So I always say that building a network in London for me has been a lot about going out for a drink, drinking beer with different people from different marketing or Universal International or A&R people, publishers, other managers, music lawyers, and you go out and meet people, you get to know them, and then you maybe 2 years down the road you think about that guy or woman and say, listen, that person would be perfect for this project. So when you have all that in place, you feel like you have a good match and you feel like they understand the project. Then you convert this into a piece of paper where they understand that, I don't want to make a hot deal. It doesn't need to be a lot of pressure in the contract so that the artist feels that, wow, I got like millions, I need to deliver here. But it needs to be enough money to do these recordings. There needs to be a tour support so that we can do this plan. Because we want to do this. We want to do like 100 gigs, and we want to make this album with these people, and it's going to cost about this.
Right.
And let's try and make this as fair as possible. And I think you need to be a likable person.
Right.
That's why I love my lawyer, because he's a likable guy. Everybody loves him. So there is no conflict when we do these negotiations. It's like, hey, this is what we need, and let's negotiate.
Exactly.
Because we're going to put a lot of effort into this, time and also money. So if you guys want 80% of the income on these streaming from these streaming platforms, maybe you should give us a little bit more. Let's try to make this fair. So I think it's a lot about that. And I think that a lot of managers, especially lawyers that become managers, are a little bit like, sometimes I hear about these hot deals that is all about, let's get these, competition between the record companies so that we can get this deal to a hot point, and let's get $1 million in advance because then my commission is really good. And then you put a lot of pressure in the artist instead of saying, let's make this a reasonable deal, and let's not spend money before we have the success. We need a little bit of money to do this record, to pay people, and we want to pay people reasonable, but it doesn't need to be a hot deal. To me, the deal is about the people. Yes. That they actually understand what we're doing. So that's, for me, how you make a good deal.
That's very important, and that's very valuable, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And it must involve lots and lots of work. And I know in my experience doing this show and even doing music, as well as balancing work and everything like that, it can cause a lot of stress, because you're constantly, and I'm a young person, so it's even worse because I'm in the point of my life where I'm in school and I need to learn things. And I'm also doing this hobby where I'm speaking to people. And for you, you're working with music artists and all these things. And I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with burnouts? I assume that you've experienced burnouts where you're just like, I can't do this anymore. You have to take a break. What's it like for you? How do you go through this experience? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
That's kind of what happened to me when I crashed. So I work a lot.
Right.
But there is a very distinct difference to what I used to do and what I'm doing, because I don't take on too much.
Okay.
The thing is that you need to have that balance, that when you go to bed, you feel like you have done everything you should. It doesn't matter if there's 20 emails waiting for you the next day, but I have a good overview on what I should be doing. And today I started 8 o'clock in the morning. I know I'm going to work until 8 o'clock in the evening. And that's 12 hours. It's okay. But tomorrow I'm going to work until 4. And then I'm going to stay with my kids and have fun with them. You constantly need to have that conversation with yourself. How are you doing? Because I don't want to end up there again. And I keep saying this to my colleagues as well. Man, you need to slow down. You need to. And I was just, I came back from Tokyo on Friday, and I discovered that this jet lag is absolutely terrible. So I need to cool it down a little bit. But this is the thing. I went to Tokyo. I could have been there for 2 days and do all my meetings in 2 days, but I spent a week, and I had fun, and I deserve to have some fun in Tokyo. So I take care of myself. That's how you do it. But I think it's a constant conversation you have with yourself. How are you doing? You ask everybody else. Why not ask yourself? How you doing?
Exactly. That's very important. That's something that I definitely took like what you just said there. That's something really valuable that I should definitely think about because I've never really thought about that because it's very stressful the life that people can live and the life that you live. You have to have a balance. You have to make sure that you're not overwhelming yourself with tasks and things like that. You got to make sure you spend time with your family, and that's very, very important because you want to make sure work doesn't affect everything else in your life. And being a manager, I wanted to ask you, what type of traits do you think a good manager should have? Like, what type of, that's kind of one thing I'd love to hear more about. Like, what type of traits do you think a manager should have, to be successful and overall a good manager?
Oh, yeah. Good question. I think the work talent is both with artists and managers extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
That you actually enjoy your work and that you have the ability to work hard. I think that's the most important thing. Confidence. And then what comes as number 3 and 4 and 5 depends on which angle you come from, because management can be like me. I'm coming from the creative side.
Right.
So my number 3 is definitely my skills in music, that I listen to music a lot and I can contribute on the A&R side. And I can be so involved in the music that my enthusiasm is filled with, it's music that I'm carrying when I go to people. And that is probably my number 3, that I have the music inside me.
Mm-hmm.
But there is, like, I know this huge manager in London who's really good. He's a lawyer. So he doesn't get involved in the music side of things. He uses A&R people from the record companies. He wants to make a good deal. And, I use a lawyer to do that. But it doesn't mean that my way of doing this is better. We just have a different angle, and we all want the same, which is create opportunities for the artist and take care of the artist. And so this is like an extremely important tool, that you see the balance, because taking care of and creating opportunities is 2 different things, and they crash. Because sometimes you create too much opportunities for the artist, and that can be very bad for the artist's mental health, because they get too much. And this is people we're talking about, human beings. We don't know where their limits are. So you have to step over to find out where the line is. So you have to be aware of that. You have to be a good person. You have to be good at looking into where do I draw the line? You have to see people and find out, like, how to deal with these problems, because there is constantly a psychological process, because the artist works really, really hard. Some artists can work a lot, and some artists, they need, they can be introverted and need time off. And you need to see that they're different people. I mean, there is a lot of skills you can have, and there's a lot of skills that I don't have. But then you need to know yourself. What skills are you happy with, and what skills do you need to get from the outside? And I think the worst type of manager is the type of manager that says that I know everything best, because you don't. There's so many things. And we have kind of like this company, we have really specialized in developing acts. So we are different from many other managers. We don't have anybody who does social media here. I love the fact that we don't have anyone here that does social media. So we talk about it, And obviously, Aurora and Sigrid is a lot on social media, and we use companies to help them with that, but we don't have it inside our offices. We don't have any money people inside our offices. We have outsourced everything that comes to, invoicing, blah, blah, blah. So we don't have any finance people in our office. We don't have any lawyers here. All of the managers here comes from the music side of things. And we love to develop new acts. Obviously, we love that we have Aurora and Sigrid who's developing further, and they're done great things, but we love the music side of it. And then, but it's not looking down at any other types of doing it, but we found that this is the core of what we love to do. So that's what we specialize in. So when an artist like Beyonce wouldn't need us, she should go somewhere else, because she needs a big legal department and a big financial department. We don't have that. We have just enough to take care of the type of business that we do. Yeah, but it's kind of like where we put in our values. And we put, with artists, we always say health comes first and then music.
Exactly.
So we have like values that we go after and try to keep, and this is the type of company we want to be. And then we have to buy services to make things happen. Like we use a lot of money on lawyers and the finance department, which is a different company that takes care of. We love that they have, what they do, and respect them. I had a meeting with one of them today. Absolutely fantastic. But it's also great that this office is very music focused.
I remember doing my research years back, just coming across the management company that you're involved in. Like, this is just so beautiful, everything that's happening here. It's so nice, everything that's being done. And one of the big questions, it's really odd that this is one of the questions that I would love to hear about, but it's one that I deal with a lot, and maybe some people deal with as well, is just a simple question. How do you deal with emails? Just all these emails. I've always wondered that, because I'm sending I try to send at least 10 emails a day to just people across the board, like people that I find fascinating. Like, how exactly on the manager side, how do you deal with just these emails? I'm not sure if you receive a lot every day. I have about, I think, and this is I've got a big inbox, unseen emails, just lots and lots of stuff. So I wanted to kind of hear about that specifically. How do you deal with emails and communication?
Well, emails is my enemy sometimes, and during this conversation, about 10 emails.
Oh,
so
wow!
It's a constant, but listen, it's like, first of all, I have a system, so all my emails from that guy goes into that box. So I have that system.
Okay.
And then I just started with one of my colleagues. He is drafting a lot. So I try to do, like, if I don't know what to answer, I go, hey, hope you're well. And then I go to my next email. So it's in the draft.
Exactly.
So I have this system. And then I forward a lot because I run the company. So if there's an email about Sigrid, I send it to Elena, who works with Sigrid. I do a lot of the Aurora stuff myself. So, and also emails is the hardest work. So late in the day, I don't do that many emails. I only read them, make drafts, and I don't reply unless I have to.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 o'clock in the morning seems to be a very good time. And then I can crash like 50 emails in 2 hours.
Wow.
I have some meetings, and then I do what's necessary. And then next morning, I'll do a lot. And then when I travel, that's the problem, because then I come home to 300 emails, and then you just have to put the whole day in and be very, sleep very well the day before. So now I'm going to do this. It's going to be one of those days where you do emails, which is horrible. But
Yeah,
not everything can be fun. But
exactly.
emails is the, and I'm like a phone guy. I love
Mhm.
having a conversation on the phone, but it takes a lot more time. But you get so much more done. You get 50 emails done in one call, because there's so much back and forward. You remember when you called
Yeah,
me?
yeah, I was very nervous. I've been doing that a lot recently too. I'm like, I'm gonna start calling people. It sounds a bit odd, but I'm gonna do it. And it's just so difficult. But yeah, it worked out, I guess, with you.
Yeah, and then you get like a voice, you get a personality in there, and then you can ask all the questions you want to get the information you want, instead of like, I'm going to send this email, and then you have a thread of 50 emails.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just pick up the phone and say, hey, let's talk about this, because I'm tired of this email thread. It's been going on for 3 weeks.
And I get what you're saying. I have a love-hate relationship for emails, depending on the email that I receive. For I don't know, a lot of people think it's weird, but I really enjoy getting emails for specifically interviews like this one, where people are like, no, I'm not really interested, or I don't know why, but it's always interesting because people go out of their way to say no, and it's you get some really crazy people from, at least since I'm a young person. I've been doing this for like 2.5 years, so you're gradually going to get no's from bigger and bigger people, and it's such an interesting. I'm not sure if you understand what I'm saying. It's such an interesting thing. Like, oh, this person said no. Oh, Willie Nelson's daughter sent me an email and said no. Tony Hawk's management sent me an email and said no. It's just such a really interesting thing. And yeah, I have a love-hate relationship for that. And kind of this is kind of a big question, but overall in management, like you probably have a lot of different favorite things about management about managing. But what's one thing that you can think of that's your favorite thing that you enjoy in your job that you do for a living?
I'll give you an example. Um, the first concert we did with Sigrid was 200 people, and we flew over a lot of music industry people from London. 2 years later, we were playing Brixton Academy for 5,000 people. And my agent looked at me and he said, Geir, this is a milestone. Why are you, what are you, why are you not more happy? Let's have a beer. Let's
Mhm.
celebrate this moment. We're playing for 5,000 people. And I'm a nerd when it comes to sound. So I always listen to the sound, and then I get irritated. Why isn't it sounding better? But I think my favorite moment was when she played for 200 people that first day, because you get that feeling that this is going to go. All we have to do now is not get in her way, and make sure she doesn't get in her own way. But she was killing it. And from then on, you turn up the amplifier. And that was a moment. And you're never going to get that moment again. It's not about how many people you play for. I realized that Brixton Academy was a big step, yes, but it hasn't anything to do with music. It's a performance, and it's fantastic. But for me, the moment when she played and she killed it in front of 200 music industry people, that was like what we were working towards, and then it happened. And those are the moments that I cherish, like, big time. Or when Aurora sends me a new song that makes me cry. you know that's like, I remember when she sent me Exist for Love, and I was doing some I'm keeping the kitchen clean, and I was like just putting on my AirPods, and she sends me a lot of music,
Yeah.
but that song just hit me so hard that everything stopped and I started to cry. and I felt so rich, like this is my job,
Mm-hmm.
listening to this song. And I just sent her a text message saying, "Thank you for sending that song. I'm crying. I'm speechless. I don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
It's just magic." And yeah, so that's an example of
Mm-hmm.
But I love when you do some work and then you get that moment, like wow.
That must be an awesome experience, like being in that place, like just receiving those songs. I'm not in that position, so I wouldn't exactly know the exact feeling, but it sounds like what you just said. It sounds phenomenal. You're sitting there and you receive it, and just those little things in life really
Yeah.
can really make your day. This is kind of trailing off. I always ask my guests like what's something they want to pass on to your listeners, but I totally forgot to ask this question earlier. But I think I'll leave this off with a really interesting question. And I'm not sure if I got this correct. Is it true that you made tea for 50 Cent?
That is true, yes. So he booked the studio for 3 days in Bergen, and we did some recordings. But my big moment with that was, um, you know, he was such a big star, so there was a lot of he had an entourage, and he had a
Hmm.
security guy that was looking at me without stop, because he didn't know me, and it was a pretty paranoid gang there. But so they were just testing out my studio, and us as engineers. It was me and my partner doing that job, and we didn't know how long they were going to stay. And there was a lot of calls before because they were worried about security, and they were worried about like if we had the right gear to do it and if we were the right people to do it.
Right.
We got some CDs with the tracks that they were going to record on the beats, and those tracks were made by Dr. Dre,
Ooh.
which was pretty. I felt like, wow, that's really hard. But then I got a call um, on my phone, and the guy said, "Hello, this is Dre. How you guys do in the studio?" And blah blah blah. And I couldn't believe it. So I said to 50, "Is that Dre? The Dre?" And then he said, "Yeah, the doctor." And I went, "Wow." And 50 Cent, he said, "Yeah, he's good." and I, and he could see that I was starstruck, and that I wasn't that starstruck about having 50 Cent in my studio. But yeah, so whenever I meet a hip hop guy, wherever I'm in the world, and I'm not too, that's not my biggest world, but if I do that, I go, I'm not going to show it, but I go like this. I have his number.
Big flex, big flex. But coming to my last question, it's kind of the important one that I always conclude my interviews with is like, what's one token of, information that you want to pass to young people or whoever are listening right now to this interview that you think that they can apply to their everyday life?
Well, if you're an artist or a manager, I think these days I'm talking a lot about how the music industry work and how to make it in the music industry, and I mean the music industry is changing a lot, but I see the biggest mistakes that a lot of people do is that they're trying to make it sound as something that could fit in the top 50 on Spotify. And there's 100,000 songs coming out every day. And this is different from the 80s and the 90s, where you created a hit song and you tried to make that song move around and get big. But what we see today is like, if you really want to make it, You need to make something unique. You need to trust yourself and find something really special. You're not trying to reach the audience with your music. You're trying to reach the gatekeepers. You need those people on your side. And those people are very often nerds in music. They love music. That's why Rosalia is doing so well, because she hits a nerve. But when you listen to it, you can't believe that this is music for playlists or radio. But it really is music for music lovers. So she made this, and it's fantastic. But what's fantastic with it is that it's so unique. It's not very commercial. But the reason why it's happening is because all of those gatekeepers loves it. So don't try to make it sound like The Weeknd. Try to make it sound like yourself. Don't use your computer in all the libraries that everybody else uses. Try to make that bass drum sound unique, and the hi-hat and the snare and the vocal and the guitar or the synthesizer. Try to make new sounds and work hard. Because if you make something really, really unique and really, really good, there is a crazy kind of justice in the music industry that will take you where you want.
Yeah, that's amazing. That will help a lot of people. I really appreciate you sharing that with us, and thank you so much for just coming on to the show today. It was really great hearing your story, and I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. It was just such an awesome. I've never spoken to a manager before on the show, so this is just the first time, and it's just really great to hear and understand more about how it works. But I'll be sure to include in the description where people can find you. But thank you again for coming on to the show.